Good evening. How are you? Well, I couldn't get out last night after I left Ari on the beat, and I have to say, as it probably was obvious, that it was professional fun to be unpacking, as they say in the news business, what Roger Stone had done in connection with the plot to overthrow our government and to put in power the man who lost the election rather than the one who won it. And I'm sure everybody got among our points yesterday that Roger Stone was gathering the troops for their major con, in order to convince the public that what they were doing was based on fact and law when it was neither. So it's pretty interesting. But the thing we see today, the kind of rolling thunder, is the effect of the outrageous incitements of Trump and his company, and then those blowbags in the far right MAGA fascist Nazi corridor of our political life and the nation as it is, and as we prepare to blunt it, fight it, and eliminate it. But what's missing? Well, first let's talk about what the problem is. The problem is, and I circulated, and you've probably seen or heard by now, there was a threat made to Judge Chutkan, who is the judge in the District of Columbia who is handling the Trump case. And she made a remark the last time they were in court along the following lines: don't go around talking about this case and trying it out in the street. What happens to this case occurs in this courtroom. And I'm paraphrasing, and you probably remember more precisely what she said. And that weekend, Trump was up to his old business, and the dog coming to kill me and drag me across the road. No, I don't think so. It's going to have to get a lot bigger and stronger. So what we have is, we have a woman threatening to kill the judge and go after the family and everything else. Now, these people who do this often are not tied very tightly. From time to time in my lifetime, starting with when I was a prosecutor, we'd get threats, and it's hard to evaluate them because you don't know what people will do. And JFK famously said a week before he was shot that if any person wanted to kill him, if they were prepared to give up their life, they could succeed. So it is never anything to laugh at, and it's hard to know how serious the threat is. So we have a threat against the judge, and the person who did it was arrested. That is the model for what we should do, and that is not what we've been doing. People have been defending themselves. For example, their security for the judge and their security for Jack Smith, and that's all well and good, but that's only half of the equation. And the recent, and I suppose most broad threat is the doxing, identifying information about normally anonymous individuals who may, as community members, serve, in this case, on the Georgian grand jury. Now, I think it's right that people be identified as having been on the grand jury, in part because it is an honor, and also because this particular grand jury did some very serious work and complicated work in the sense of cooperating with the prosecution as it made manifest what this large RICO conspiracy was all about. So, but having done that, where do we find them? There are people collecting information about them and publishing it. pictures, home addresses, and so forth. And they call that doxing. Now, for some of us who have been somewhat in the public and from time to time said something that may have annoyed others, we're used to threats from time to time. One guy, when I protested a Confederate soldier in the town square within the border where the court was, he sent me an email saying that he was coming from Texas and he was going to kill me. And I sent him a note back. I said, if you're going to make a threat like that, you really shouldn't do it in an email. Now, obviously he didn't kill me, but you don't know. And there have been other instances I've handled a little more seriously. I think all these incidents have to be handled seriously. These people think they can do this with impunity, threaten and so forth. Now, I'm in Loudoun County, and in recent years, the school board, which was normally, I guess, a hearing by the public, by and for the public, of school policy that often resulted in resolutions that reflected the will of the community as best as any public body can do. But it has, in recent years, been a vehicle to promote the maniacs in our community who don't give a damn about the students. Indeed, would be just fine if the public schools were closed, because they're the members of the right-wing Christian homeschoolers, as opposed to those who for a variety of reasons, keep their children home and teach them themselves. Which is pretty challenging, having taught myself, specific issues, how you would teach a child a whole number of issues. But I'm getting a little bit away from it. So the conduct of those elected to the school boards and the debates they have, which are sometimes energetic, has become toxic, because they're fine with bullying children who are trying to deal with their gender. They've made it evil and despicable, and we have had deaths. But they so targeted one woman who is a person who's never been exposed to anything like this. And they were so relentless in attacking her personally and threatening her children. She finally gave up the fight and left the board. And I'm sure they just thought this was great, high-fiving how their violence, rather than moral suasion, had chased this woman out of public life that she never thought was so public, never thought it would be so terrifying or dangerous. And not just to her, but to her children. And everybody came to her and said, no, you shouldn't do that. But what if they went out and arrested these people? And I put that at the door of your local sheriff, because if your local sheriff is of the madding crowd, you can't be assured that you're going to be safe from these threats. So this is a serious problem, and it's a problem that we have to be stern about, because there is no doubt that they know the effect of these approaches on individuals. And as they metaphorically beat up these ordinary citizens who accepted a responsibility to assist the district attorney uncover an historic crime in Georgia. So, what is the final take here? Our judges have to wake up. There's probably the thought that, we can handle this. It'll go away. It won't be so severe. That's ridiculous. We have a whole history of other nation states where this did not work, and it has to work here, or we're nothing. They'll be shooting judges and so forth in the future if we don't figure this out. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be saying that in the context of having talked about Judge Chutkan, but we know the threat in her case, and we've seen in other states how extreme the reprisal can be against persons serving a public office. If our nation is a nation of threats and bullying and hurt and vengeance for expressing differing views and punishing people who seek to uphold the law, then we're only a step away from fascism. We're only a step away from people like Trump running our government and doing this, quote, with the authority of fiat. Because you can never say the law they pass is representative of the people, because the entire system is based on choosing a strong man, however much he plays golf, and making him he who is and causes to be. So, what is our thinking? Our thinking is, don't wait till they come for you. The thinking is, any person who is threatened, why isn't law enforcement at that person's house and telling them to take down that shit? I do have to think, and again, I'm sorry to go back to Chutkan, but I think that, and I don't know how old she was when she was in Jamaica, but I have noticed that people who've had some experience in the street, as I think my early exposure and upbringing had, have a more common sense and realistic way of seeing how good and bad people work. There are a lot of bad people in America right now, and if you let them bully you, it will get worse. This guy, Trump, don't tell me he was a president. He's always been a criminal, and he should be told, you're going to jail right now. And I'll tell you what, you're going to jail now, and if when you're released after this term in jail, you'll sit there until there's a trial. However fast or slow we put it together, you will be in jail and you will stay there. And I believe that good citizens will support that. From time to time, I've referenced Enemy of the People, an Ibsen play. And the thing that's fascinating about that is how the man who is thought to be the enemy, who exposes a danger to the water system, he becomes the bad guy. And that's what Trump hopes to do. He hopes to be perceived as the good guy, ascending above all modicum of law and constitution and good behavior to do whatever the hell he wants. And if he wins that debate in America, there is no more democracy. And our vectors are good, but we can lose the initiative we have, and we can't allow that to happen. So this may be a little shorter than usual, but I'll talk to you again tomorrow. Bye bye.